This is a show about facing fear, unlocking courage, and taking action.
Courage isn't necessarily a daunting thing.
It's going to give you more purpose. It's going to give you more drive.
It feels like making a courageous decision is going to get you closer to who you aspire to be.
It's knowledge plus faith plus action equals courage.
If you want to be successful and courageous, help somebody else become successful and courageous. Be others-minded instead of self-centered. You do that, everybody wins. Everybody eats. That's what life should be about.
I gotta say, I love episodes like this. And some of it's like super obvious because my guest has not been afraid to go for multiple careers. Like, I know you as number 6, and I want to talk about why number 6? Was there a reason? I know you had other numbers, Avery, but was there a reason you were like, number 6, this is it for me?
Well, my number in college was 15, and 15 wasn't available. So I said, okay, simple. The simplest math in the world, 1 + 5 is 6. And,
and here we are, number 6.
Yeah, if you want to be real spiritual or religious, God created the heaven and earth in 6 days.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, no, hey, I actually don't have a rhyme. I always wore 6. I play everything under the sun. I always wore 6. And if 6 wasn't available, I went to 12. These were facts. This is what I went to. So when you see another 6, you got to like send some love out that way to another number 6. Let's share a little bit about the stuff people don't know. Yeah, we know about your amazing career in the NBA with the Spurs. We know that you've coached multiple occasions, Alabama, and in the NBA. I don't think people know that you didn't go to Alabama. You didn't go to like a big D1 school. I don't think people know that you weren't just a draft lottery pick in the NBA. Like, you worked your butt off to get there. And maybe you can share a little bit of origin story, like where'd you go to college, and did you actually think the NBA was attainable back then?
Well, even before college, I was the last man on a 14-member team that won a state championship in New Orleans in 1983. We were 35-0, and they used to call me Little 30 because they only put me in the game when they were up by 30. I was a bench warmer. And fortunately for me, and unfortunately for our starting point guard, he got suspended during the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And our coach at the time didn't want to disrupt the rotation off the bench. So he basically installed me from the last man on the bench to the starting point guard. And I used about 4 or 5 games to garner one coach from New Mexico Junior College that thought I could be a really good player. I was never going to college to play basketball. So this coach, Ron Black, offered me a scholarship. I flew to Hobbs, New Mexico, which they didn't have an airport. So I landed in Midland, Texas. My first time flying on the airplane, scared to death. And I went to New Mexico and parlayed that into a transfer into Cameron University in Oklahoma. And then the music started to really happen when I transferred to Southern University in Baton Rouge. And that's where I led the nation 2 years in a row. And I still have the record since 1988. Nobody's ever averaged 13.3 assists.
Oh man, you're taking my thunder here. I did the homework on this, Avery. I was like, no, I don't think people know it. 13.3 assists. And by the way, that is, from a life lesson standpoint, my favorite part of the business is when you can dime out to other people. Mm. Could you imagine diming out 13.3 and serving other people on a regular? And you've done this, your whole life. When you go back and on the start of the journey, when coach is like, I'm not disrupting this system. Mm-hmm. Were you like, finally, yes? Or were you like, oh shit, here we go? Like, excuse me.
No, I was like, finally. I was waiting my chance. Mm-hmm. And, the window kept closing. it continued to close. And I was thinking, man, where's the light at the end of the tunnel? And once I saw that light, there was no turning back. I was 5'4", 135 pounds my senior year in college. So I was always a fighter. I was never a quitter. But I wanted to just do the hard things. And fortunately, those hard things paid off for me.
Your OG entourage, like your original entourage, the people that when you're sitting on the end of the bench that just said, Avery, stay with it. Who was in your life starting five back then?
Yeah, it was mainly my parents. My parents aren't around anymore, but they always told me to prove the people that love me, prove them right and prove your doubters wrong. Just, that's what you got to do. That's where your focus should be. So my starting five of my mom and dad, a blended family of a bunch of brothers and sisters. My little league coach who discovered me when I was 10 years old on the playground when I was playing football. And he discovered me and told me I should play basketball and baseball. So when we put those things into motion and I look back over all those people who believed in me, man, that's who I was playing for.
You said blended family. So how many siblings?
10 total. It's 10 of us. I'm number 9 out of 10.
I can imagine those 5v5 matches. Were there any 5v5 games?
Yeah, we had a couple of matches. Fortunately, growing up in a real rough neighborhood in New Orleans, it was good to kind of have that fence around me because, my brothers and sisters saw that I had some talent and I had a bright future. So to really have that, isolated amongst those guys so that when trouble was daily happening in my community, I had some people that I could lean on that were really kind of my own private security force.
Getting to Southern and then getting to play and do what you do, as that's coming to an end, are you thinking, is anyone in your ear about, what comes next for Avery?
My senior year is when I thought, you know what? I think I have a chance. I have a chance to really be special. I don't know if I'm going to get drafted, but when scouts started showing up at my practices and games and basically talking to me after the games, talking to my coach, I figured, man, I may have a chance. And, when I graduated and went and played in this small no-name league in Florida to try to improve my chances of getting drafted, the USBL, United States Basketball League, I still didn't get drafted, but it helped me get a chance to basically walk on to the Seattle Supersonics where I first got my shot.
And that first time you played for the Sonics, that first, did you know you belonged or did you feel like I have work to do?
No, 1,000%. We played in the summer league at Loyola Marymount, and some of the veteran players from that Seattle team were my teammates. Nate McMillan, who's been a long time head coach in the league. Now he's an assistant with the Lakers. Sadell Threek, Derek McKee, Dale Ellis. So basically, I was starting on a team with veteran players in the summer league, and we were playing against some talented players. And I made first team all summer league. And I was like, wow, that's it. I can play in the NBA. And the Atlanta Hawks offered me a contract. The Golden State Warriors offered me a contract, but I was loyal to the Sonics. And fortunately, I signed with the Sonics and made their team and started my journey.
I mean, that's probably the right word. No? I mean, and when it wasn't start your journey, I mean, get on an airplane, check, right? On to New Orleans, but also go on this adventure. I mean, do you see it like the whole thing as like a crazy journey? Can you believe your story?
Well, it's one of your words. It was courageous because I was already accepted to get my master's. I was going to Tulane to get my master's in sports psychology. Mm. I had several backup plans, but I wanted to go on this courageous journey for a guy that's from an HBCU school, didn't get drafted. You know, he's probably a $162 wet, and he's not a 3-point shooter. But let's go on this journey and see what happens. Let's give it everything we have. And I'm glad that I had the tenacity to want to start down that journey. And it lasted for 16 years.
It was a joy to watch you do you also. And I truly mean that. Like, I think maybe because I'm 5'11", I wasn't going to the NBA anytime soon, but I was a point guard and I love to compete and I love to make people around me better. So I can remember watching you do what you did. You know, I don't think I like knew of your story till the Spurs, and maybe I wasn't, maybe that's normal for a lot of us. But once I saw you, it was like, oh yeah, now we're talking. When you look back at it all, do you just feel, is it a story of just determination and discipline? Is it, how would you describe the story as a whole?
Yeah, that's a great point, Ryan. You know, I wrote a book several years ago called Aspire Higher, and it was based on discipline and determination, details, and that's what my life has been about. And also failing forward. I have failed. You know, I've been married 34 years, and my wife will tell you, you know, 365 days a year, I do not get it right. My worst game in the NBA, when we won the championship with the Spurs, I failed miserably in the first half of the game with 4 or 5 turnovers, but then I hit the game winning shot. So just having that determination to just get back up and put one foot in front of the other, that's what it's all about. Yeah, you're right. Discipline, determination, details, you know, and not running away from adversity.
Yeah, we'll throw in another D, actually doing it, you know. But I love those D's, and it lands with me. I feel like for a guy that has a company called Courageous, it could have been Curiosity, right? Like it's like to continue down the path and keep asking questions and keep working on my stuff and try to get better. I have to ask, maybe this is curiosity asking more than me. If I'm your children, am I like, oh no, here comes dad with another leadership story? Or are they like, we love dad. Dad is always right there as our biggest champions, or all the above?
Yeah, I think it's all of the above. When you have kids, you know, I got a 31-year-old superstar daughter who has 2 degrees from the University of Pennsylvania, Mandarin Chinese and Business Economics through the Wharton, and a minor in geology. I mean, she's worked for BlackRock Investments and Bain and Company, MBA from Kellogg. Now she's works under the CEO for a Fabletics sportswear company. And my son, Avery Jr., who's a superstar, played for me at Alabama, has his undergrad and master's degree from Alabama. He's got 3 different companies, just launched recently his lifestyle hydration drink called Flourish, Flerish. You can go on their IG page and check it out. But just 2 superstar children who are just different, North and South Pole. But I didn't want to always give them a speech. They didn't want the speechwriter. They didn't want the motivational speaker. They wanted daddy, you know? And I always told them, you got more benefits if I'm daddy and if I'm your friend or some motivational speaker. And I had to try to find that balance, because sometimes they didn't even want to coach. They didn't want to be coached. They wanted to be loved. They wanted to be pointed in the right direction. And sometimes I would come home from a long road trip. My wife didn't want coach. She wanted her husband. So I think trying to find that balance and navigate through it all is not all something you could just press a button and do. So it's called on-the-job training.
Amen. And hey, you know what? In the spirit of you've got your D's, we're moving into my C's, right? Like I talked about courageous and I talked about curiosity, but I always say you can't be courageous when you're cloudy. You can't see a North Star on a foggy night, right? Your true north. And so the other C is clarity. And it's so funny, Avery, that we're having this conversation now. My son, I coach his 6th grade soccer team. And look, I don't sense this is the next Messi between you and me. That's all good. I've had these kids forever and I've seen them like grow and develop. And we just ended our season and I gave a speech at the team party with my son. The minute we get in the car, he has to declare if he wants dad or if he wants coach. He decides, not me. Like, is he ready for dad? Does he want dad or does he want coach? And if he says coach, then I know he's ready for feedback. That's the clarity component. And if he says dad, I'm like, put my arm around him. We're going for a French fry run, right?
Yeah. And yeah, that's all communication. So at the end of the day, there's so many different levels of communication, whether you're a coach or a parent. And you have to know how to matriculate through a bunch of different voices. My kids or my players, they like my intense voice. They didn't like my intense voice all the time. So I had to mix from intense to teaching to loving, to big brother, fatherly, advice. There's so many different voices. And even with my children, they were different. I could use my intense voice 75% of the time with my son, and he would respond. My daughter wouldn't respond to 75, 80% of an intense voice. So it's just knowing how to navigate. And another C word, and when you're doing that, you got to be consistent.
Yeah.
They got to consistently know that you want the best for them. And that is not just about a scorecard.
The silly question I could ask that I won't is like, how did Avery Johnson get so passionate about leadership? And you do take a lot of stages now. You are doing motivational speaking work. I'm more curious, like, let's play a quick little game here, because you have had an opportunity to share courts or play for some pretty amazing leaders. So I'm going to give you a name. I'd love off the cuff, first word, one word to describe them, and then why that word. You ready? And by the way, let's also let the audience know, like, Avery and I, we don't share questions back and forth. He doesn't know what's coming here. And so here we go. All right. David Robinson.
The Admiral. He's the Admiral.
What'd you learn from him?
David is super intelligent. He's one of the smartest guys you ever know. Plays multiple instruments. I think he was a math major in college. Very, he reads a lot, very thoughtful. He's really a bright guy. He's so smart. And I love talking to him about non-sports issues.
Mm. Yeah. And by the way, he's not the only musician here on the call. And to be really clear, one of two of us is, it's not me. All right. So talk to me a little about that love story.
David was the guy that, you pop into a restaurant and there's a piano or saxophone or whatever, he could get down, man. And that's what I really loved about our team. We were so well-rounded. When you're talking about guys that we've had like Vinny Del Negro, Steve Kerr, Mario Ellie, Tim Duncan, Malik Rose, Antonio Daniels, we were just well-rounded. Sean Elliott. We had some really deep conversations, some late nights about a lot of different issues that were going on around the world.
But am I getting this right? Aren't you also a musician?
I'm not a musician. I played the clarinet growing up,
okay.
But I'm not a musician. I'm from New Orleans, of course. I love jazz music, but I wouldn't call myself a musician. Both of my kids can play the piano.
Oh, they're both piano players. All right. Next up, if I said Tim Duncan, one word to describe Tim Duncan.
Big fundamental.
All right. And we're moving on. Pop. Let's go Greg Popovich.
Discipline.
How does that land in your life? It's another.
I had the military background, Air Force Academy. And, everything he talked about from day one was about, we got to have structure and discipline. We can't really, try to go off the beaten path unless we have a foundation. He was all about building that foundation on how we practice, how we travel, how we communicate, how we play defense. Offensively, what's our system? How do we identify as an offensive team? Are we a half-court team, full-court team? defensive team. So he was really about laying the right foundation.
All right, we're going to do two more of these, okay? First, Dennis Rodman.
Ooh. Dennis Rodman. Wow. Dennis Rodman. I know you want one word. I'll say rebounder, but then I'm going to expand on it. Yes, he's the best rebounder I've ever seen in my life. But in terms of physical fitness, extraordinary. I've never seen an NBA player that I've played with or coach that had the type of physical conditioning and stamina that Dennis Rodman had.
I mean, you just think it's something he worked at?
Yeah, I used to see him. He taught me how to lift weights after games. That was the trick of me staying in shape. Normally, the game's over, you go do your interviews, everybody go home. No, Dennis taught me how to lift weights after the game, helped me with my off-season training routine. And that guy could run all day and all day and all night.
All right, last one. You ready? Avery Johnson.
Complicated.
Complicated. Come on.
Another one of your C words.
Why is that your answer?
No, I wouldn't say that. I'm saying that, jokingly. My life has been that way. I've been, on the outside looking in. I had to come through the back door. Nobody saw me going to coach college in 2015, and it happened. I've pivoted to private equity and real estate now with Avery Capital and ABJ. I'm running, for a first-time fund, a large private equity real estate fund. While calling TV games on college basketball for CBS Sports. I'm sit on a couple of different boards. I see the world in a lot of different ways. I try to see the best in people. So, yeah, I would just hopefully people will say that I'm a likable guy. And a lot of times people want to do business with people that are not so smart, but people who they like. They want to be able to go to dinner with you. I would say I'm approachable. That's an even better word. I'm approachable.
I'm just kind of picking up some cues here. And in my family growing up, my brother was sort of branded the smart one. He was the Georgetown lawyer. If I was a millionaire, he's getting my call, and I was branded as the good with people one. And I'll tell you, for a long time, that actually hurt me. Like it felt like a piece of gravity where, if I was comparing myself to my older brother, that if he's the smart one, I must not be smart. And it took me a long time to get over that. I mean, now I understand, like, oh my God, like that's the skill of being approachable. But we still do these things as humans where, I went to college. I'm like, I didn't go to Cornell. I had to look at Cornell my whole career, my whole 4 years up there. And that was a stain against me. And you hold on to things from the past. And look at all the things you've done and where you've come from. Like, does it just make you smile as you think about, the rock skipping across the pond and how far that it continues to skip? It's amazing.
And it's funny, I don't call them staff or employees, but my teammates here at my office, I think if you brought all of them in here and you ask them to describe me in one word, they would say networker. Because I love, my network is strong and I love networking with people. That's how they would describe me as I think back on it.
Do you still find that, I mean, you kind of do, like you said, since you're calling them, is they're on the bench with you, right? They're in the game with you. Do you still find the sports metaphor, it's like perfectly works for all facets of life?
1,000%. It's not even close. That's why I think my transition or pivot has been seamless. Now, we've had some bumpy roads. We've had a couple of rocks skipping across the pond, as you alluded to. But at the end of the day, it's still all about people, people, people. You can have the best product. You can have the best process. You can talk about profits. You can talk about problem solving. None of it's going to work unless you can identify the right people.
Give me, like, if you had to chalk up, if I'm going to start a business, I'm listening to this podcast, give me the 3 sports metaphors that best applies to getting me ready to launch my business.
Wow, the three sports metaphors, I would say number one, preparation. You can't go into a game if you haven't practiced and you're not prepared. You got to prepare yourself. You have to know your business. You have to know your content. You have to be competent on your business. You got to know your business because you're prepared like the back of your hand. So that's number one. Number two, you got to have competitive spirit.
I like it.
It's about winning, man. You want to win. And I know people say, it's not about losing, it's about learning, but I want to win. And I'm going to compete. And everything I'm doing right now, I have an opponent. And my opponent is getting better. So I got to get even much better than my opponent. If I have a value proposition, it's got to be better than my opponent. So number one, got to be prepared. Number two, competitive spirit. And number three, and I think even more importantly, you have to know how to resolve conflict. I said this in a speech that I gave recently. You basically have to prepare yourself, or you got to basically embrace adversity before it happens. Because challenges, adversity, all under conflict, it's inevitable. It's called life. It's going to happen in your personal life. It's going to happen in business. But you got to be prepared to know how to resolve that conflict. Because if you don't, then it's going to stagnate you and you won't be able to get to the next. You won't be able to get to the next game.
All right, I love it. Preparation, competitive spirit for winning, and build the muscle to resolve conflict.
Yeah.
Avery, if you had to take your family out of it and we were going to make a cocktail of your leadership style, of what you've taken from all these amazing people you've interacted with, and maybe it's a little bit of Pop and a little bit of the Admiral, what does the mosaic cocktail look like? What if you only could pick like 5 ingredients? And I know I want to honor you, learn from a lot of folks. Your leadership style, give me like, who is it really made up of?
Yeah, it's a couple of people. Yeah, obviously Coach Pop, who I know, is recovering right now. He had a medical situation and we send our prayers and thoughts to him. But yeah, he would be a great start because again, like I said, it's more foundational. You can build a house, but if you don't have the foundation, it's not going to last. Yeah. And then when you look at guys like Don Nelson and my college coach, Ben Jobe, those guys were offensive savants. Those guys really knew, offense, man. This stuff about scoring 5 and 7 seconds. We were doing that in college. We were top 3 and 5 in the nation in assists. And then Don Nelson, he was so savvy at matchups and offense. So I would say those 3 guys would kind of make up. And then I look at guys outside the sport. I look at folks like Sean Payton, who's one of my best friends from the Denver Broncos. I think he's one of the most effective communicators you'll ever see in your life. I don't care what sport it is. And I got a Super Bowl ring because when he was coaching the Saints, I gave the Saints a speech in training camp and also at the Super Bowl called Be Special. You are special, be special. So those 4 guys are guys that I really, have a lot of respect for, that has meant a lot to me. And then my high school coach, Bernard Griffin, who the court is named after him at St. Augustine High School. The court's named after me at Southern University. He basically kept my career going in the early part of my college days when he took the job at Southern. And he's another one that was all about discipline.
Avery, when you see the word over my shoulder, my C here, my original C here, right? Mm-hmm. And you think about your life, you think about the courageous choices that you've made Is there one that pops for you like that was the most courageous?
Yeah, there's one that really pops. Yeah, there's only one.
Let's hear it.
I've been with her for 38 years. We've been married for 34. At the time when we met, I wasn't single, and we met, and I had to make a courageous decision, and it's worked out for everybody. Everybody's happy now, but at that time, it wasn't a good look. But I'm glad I made that courageous choice to go down the aisle July 6, 1991 with then Miss Cassandra Merricks, now Cassandra M. Johnson, who was a part of the first accredited nursing class at Southern University. All right. She was a medical intensive care nurse. I often ask her, when are you going to come out of retirement? She says, I can't, because you're like 100 patients in one. You're so high maintenance.
Yeah. Do you believe that to be true? Come on.
Yes. 1000%.
Well, I think we're all grateful. And I'm sure both your kids are grateful that you all went through.
Yeah. And it was, life is hard, man. Life is not always easy. And, I always tell people, they ask me, what's the key to my family? I said, a family that prays together, stay together. We've been through a lot together, but we pray for each other. We encourage one another. I've had some tough moments where, I had to be a disciplinarian with my children. They look like rock stars now, but it wasn't always like that. Especially when you're dealing with a teenage son who likes Friday night lights, and your daughter's coming up with other teenage girls, and things change, man. It could be have some tough moments, but fortunately we navigated through all of that, and with a lot of prayer, I'm really thankful to God that He's protected us.
I have a 11-year-old son and a 9-year-old daughter, and my 11-year-old is my rule follower for now. And my 9-year-old, you know where this is going, right? So I joke, I have a narc, and I have someone who needs to be narked. And like, we're like, hey, to my son, we're like, do not parent her. That's not your job. But where is she? What is she doing? We do have family rules. So we have some principles of the family. You talked about the C of consistency earlier. Did you have certain, like, hey, these are the rules of the Johnson house? Can you share those?
Well, I think early on, when all of the kids were having sleepovers, we didn't allow sleepovers. Just that was a rule. You can go, I'll pick you up. Okay. There's no sleepover. And then you're going to be the last ones to get cell phones. You're not going to be the first ones. And, my son used to say, well, Dad, how about if I have to call you and it's an emergency? Okay, go to the school office and use the phone in the office. But I think, when they were in high school, we had certain rules on curfew and those things. And it was not to harm the kids. It was to protect them, not only from themselves, but from other situations. And I think when you have those rules and you're consistent and you don't allow the kids to divide the parents, because kids can be very manipulative, but if the parents stay synchronized, instead of saying, well, mommy said I can eat 5 ice creams, but daddy said no, just being synchronized, I think that really helps in those situations.
Looking back now, when you guys you reminisce about the kids growing up, do they now kind of get, okay, I get why you did that? Or are they like, we just missed out, that was unfair?
No, even now, my son has 3 different businesses he run, and he's got employees, our teammates. Again, he would say, Dad, if somebody's 30 minutes late or 3 minutes late, that's a problem, because you taught me that if you're on time, you're late. If you're early, you're on time. So a lot of those principles back then, maybe they didn't quite understand them, but as young adults right now, they get it. They totally understand it. And now they understand how it's applicable in their own lives. My daughter's married now. She got married April 13th. She's got a husband. So a lot of what we modeled and what her mom modeled, what she modeled with me, my daughter's doing the same thing with her husband. So,
Avery, I've got 2 questions left for you, and then we'll give you your life back. Thank you for letting us in and to actually see what things look like for the Johnson family. Appreciate that. One, I mean, I think I read somewhere that at some point you were considering a political or run into some office, or like, I don't know if you were running for senator or considering that. But I'm sure I'm not the first. Man, we need you. Come on, man. Like, will you consider going back and no, I'm getting this. No, definitely.
No, here's where the story evolved from. So my college coach who I was sharing with you, Ben Job, he used to tell me all the time, AJ, don't worry about the NBA. No, don't worry about the NBA. You know, you're not good enough for the NBA. Don't worry. When I graduated and I got my diploma, he said, now it's time for you to go to the NBA because I promised your mom that you would get your degree. So I didn't want you to focus on it. He said, but really, what's more important than the NBA? He said, one of these days, you need to become the governor of Alabama or the governor of Louisiana, because he was based in Alabama. And I said, no, coach, I'm not in politics. So I told that story when I got the job at Alabama. He was at the press conference before he passed away. And I said, Coach Job, I'm sorry I didn't make it to the governor's mansion in Alabama, but today is the next best thing. I'm the basketball coach.
Well, I still feel like you're so principled. Like, we kind of need you in politics, and maybe that's not interesting to you at all. I'm getting the head nods, no, in all directions right now. No passion for that, eh?
No passion, no desire.
All right, fair enough. All right, take us home here. I think, we tend to have, if someone's still, we're still in their ears, we're on their walk, we're in their car. They're clearly focused and invested in this conversation. Maybe they were like me. They saw you play. Maybe they've heard you do one of those Be Special speeches. This is a show about courage. Like, how do you want to wrap this up today with the listener?
I think the key is with courage is about not only being courageous in your own self, but really caring about other people. I've said this recently because I'm pretty active on social media, all forms of it. I got millions of engagement a month throughout my social media with impressions and likes and all of that. My team monitors it. But I think the key is, if you want to be successful and courageous, help somebody else become successful and courageous. I think that's the whole key. Be others-minded instead of self-centered. You do that, everybody wins. Everybody eats. That's what life should be about.
The most point guard thing a point guard would ever say. Although let's be clear, you could score, man. You could score. You did it, but no, none of this little.
In the mid range.
However, to help the team win, though. But I love that, and it's as 25 is about to pop and show its face. Sometimes fear gets the best of us. We talk about fear and courage are kin, and I think when fear wins, Maslow wins, and we start to worry about ourselves. And if we can just sort of channel that fear and honor that fear, and hey, let me serve others. How do I make those around me just a little bit better? Dime a little bit more, and good things will come. And if you could do 13.3 a month for everybody else, we'd all be better, right? Avery Johnson, man, what a pleasure to get to know you, the real you. Thank you for sharing today on the Courageous Podcast.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Hey, man, be good.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Courageous Podcast. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts so more people can find us. See you again next week.